Black was a game that had an incredible amount of hype built up for it before release. The term Halo Killer was thrown around a lot back in those days, but it felt like it was tossed around even more for Black. But the thing I remember hearing the most about this game before it came out was how it was going to be gun porn in the same way that racing games at the time were sometimes referred to as car porn. That the game would be just as obsessed with the detail of the guns and the elements surrounding the guns as Gran Turismo was with its car. Black was sold on the promise of living up to that level of detail, and in some ways it certainly succeeded. Visually speaking, the game is very impressive for the PS2 Xbox era of games, and compares favorably to quite a few of the early Xbox 360 games. And the extended persistence of objects like ejected bullet casings and bullet holes in walls is something that's still somewhat unique. Everything about the game is honed in on whatever gun you're currently holding. Hell, when you reload, everything else in the world becomes blurry and the focus becomes entirely on the gun you're reloading, which, from a gameplay standpoint, can be extremely annoying, but it certainly shows off how many polygons they put into that gun model. But in order to get to that level of detail under close scrutiny, Black had to give up some of its uniqueness and detail on a broader scale. If you look around any of the game's environments, it becomes immediately clear that while the designers of this game were busy staring at the guns, they forgot to build anything else in any real detail. Each level is repetitive, bland, and filled with nearly identical enemies looking to murder you. And the moment-to-moment game mechanics don't do Black any favors either. Even in its era, the absolute lack of any complexity or variety whatsoever would have been damning in the face of other games like Halo or even Killzone. And these days, it's outright boring. As I mentioned earlier, there's no variety in the enemies you fight. There's hardly any weapon variety, but you do basically get one weapon for each archetype. A shotgun, an assault rifle, a submachine gun, and so on. And each gun is very good looking, but that doesn't really matter when there's only a handful of guns to use. And on some level, all of this would be fine. The game would pretty much just be a straightforward shooting gallery with paper cutout enemies you mow down with a handful of generic weapons. Not even something I would have been looking for at the time, but something that could hypothetically appeal to people. But oddly, behind all the marketing bluster about gun porn and balls-to-the-wall non-stop action, Black also desperately wants to be a serious game about military black ops with unskippable, ridiculously long FMV cutscenes before every single level. And that tonal disparity is what hammers the final nail into the coffin for me. Black is a game that seems split between two worlds, unable to decide what it is. And even if it had decided to become the full-on shooter with none of the garbage story, I don't know that I'd find it that much more engaging. It would still be filled with a massive number of nearly identical enemies in desperately bland environments. But, to be fair to the developer's own goals, it would still definitely have the prettiest guns. In my retro reviews, I look at games that are at least 10 years old, what I would consider to be retro, and I see if they've held up today, if they're still worth playing now. If you like that idea, be sure to subscribe so you can see the latest videos. If you like this video in particular, be sure to hit that like button, and thanks for watching.